Welcome to Stars and Sprouts,
a pagan parenting podcast
where magic meets motherhood.
We are your hosts, Cawnawyn
and Annette, here to explore the sacred,
the cyclical,
and the soulful path of raising children
in rhythm with the earth and stars. Welcome to Samhain, Annette. Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm so happy to be in this season.
I'm so glad to be in person.
Us together in a podcast in my crazy office. I'm so glad we're here together. Yes, what a time.
I was thinking earlier about how it feels like the whole year builds up to this moment.
Kind of a lot of pressure on Samhain, I feel like.
Oh, well, that's true. Yeah. It can be underwhelming if you put too much on it.
I think I've done that in the past, and I've really tried to be more conscious about enjoying the journey to the season, without making it such a big deal. And nowadays, with how commercial it is,
so true.
I'm trying to look away. Not that I don't love it. This is the time of year where I buy all my home decor, but at the same time, I'm like, it's so much. It's oversaturated now. I feel like it's losing its meaning a little bit, which is why I'm glad we're talking today about what we're talking about. But how's your experience, especially as a mom, been coming into Samhain season?
Well, I think when you have a connection to a generation below you, the generations behind feel maybe all the more potent or something.
Yeah.
So I think that being a mom, Samhain is not just sort of what might I feel reaching through that veil, but also what are my obligations to what's beyond that veil?
Totally feel that weight. Yes.
I think something we've talked about in the past about cyclical nature, and also basically having children, one day we're going to be behind that veil, right? And our children are going to be behind that veil, and so on and so forth, right? And so just sort of a feeling of a link in the chain. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
Yeah. The awareness, the greater awareness of our place within all of that, I think comes to the forefront.
Yeah. I think before kids, it's I'm the main character. Right. And now it's I'm, just that link in the chain. Yeah. Like a segue. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm just a means to a next generation.
Which, I think is actually kind of freeing. When the focus and the lighting and whatever, the glare is not in your eye, you're able to see a lot more, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I just like the spotlight. What can I say? I'm still my main character. And also, I so get what you mean. Where the whole notion of legacy doesn't enter my mind until motherhood. And not legacy, the things I've left behind and how my name will be etched forever. It's more what lessons and memories am I imparting onto a next generation, and what am I leaving behind of value? And memory is so much more of a potent question of what does that even feel like and mean. Actually, funny thing, a lot of my childhood was filmed. And this is in the 90s because my dad worked in TV. Not film for a TV show, but we had cameras back then. So we were totally the home vloggers before they had
that was the thing.
And so many of my memories are actually on film. I don't actually have the memory, but I know what the video looked like. And so that's my version of it. And so my memory goes really detailed and far back because I can watch the videos. And we used to watch them when we were kids because my mom would just put them on instead of TV. And we would see ourselves doing fun things, Yeah. And so my senior thesis actually in my college degree was a whole concert based off of what is memory. And so I'm kind of obsessed with that and how those memories are replaced by the video and how I don't have my own sense of what my memory is because it was filmed. So that's what it is, black and white. There's no arguing because I can see it play out. And it replaced what my own awareness of memory is. I don't know. Yeah. So this time of year for me, because of that veil thinning, it puts me back in touch with what do I feel in my body that I remember? How did it feel? Not what it looked like. Okay. And that's been a whole part, I think, of my witchcraft, getting in touch with that personal experience versus what was preserved on tape. Yeah. And nowadays, kids, I think about how they see the videos and the photos. It's so prevalent. Where back then, nobody really has that of their childhood, who's our age.
Yeah, memory is variable. It's the narrative you make for yourself, probably heavily edited.
Truly. That's why I'm
continually edited. Yes. Yeah, so to not have that and to think of your body as sort of where the record for you is kept is so fascinating. My relationship with my body is changing a lot these days. And I think, you created babies with your body. You'd think that being pregnant twice would have already got that connection going. But actually, my work with plants, I would say, that's where the body connection is starting to form for me. And so when you say like, oh, what does it feel like in my body? Like that means a lot more now than it did like a year ago. Cause I'm realizing like tuning into different frequencies of information. Like that's sort of what intuitive thought feels like for me. It's like kind of just tuning into another frequency instead of having like an antenna sticking out of the top of my head. I feel like that's actually how I feel most of the time, actually. But no, it's more like my whole body's the antenna for that more intuitive type knowledge. And just something about thinking about my body as being as intelligent as my mind has helped me bring respect and like grounding into it. So I think the aspect you're layering in with memory is like something I'm going to have to be chewing on and thinking about for my kids too, because they still are so in their bodies, you know.
And for any new listeners, hi, welcome. Stars and Sprouts, but we both have pretty young kids. Mine are 3 and 2.
Yeah, and 3 and 9 months.
Yeah. If you've got older kids, let us know how that goes, you know, how it's been. Because, yeah, I think about the newer generations. I mean, it's no secret that a lot of us, I think, are really concerned about the separation between child and nature happening just because of modern technology. And I think about that often where it's like, yeah, the attention to the senses becoming that antenna, like you said, being able to tap into that, getting cut off because of technology. But then also like in my case with the memory thing, like they can just go watch a video of themselves that their mom shot on their phone, you know, so easily. They see the photos and the videos in real time, like immediately afterward. Like we'd have to wait for the film to develop, but like, you know, when you're 3, you don't really know the difference. Like all of a sudden you're just watching yourself on TV. But there's such a lack of like having to wait, and you're met immediately with, well, what just happened? And then you just take it like as truth instead of, well, how did that make me feel in the moment? And, like,
I see.
You know,
so there's like an overriding
Yes.
potentially with the immediacy.
Right. And like, how is that going to affect them getting older, tapping into? I feel like this episode is already taking us in such a different place.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? Just because we're already here, I want to say one more thing about those older kids. It's just like the idea of coming of age right now.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to like put a placeholder because not raising children who are coming of age right now. I'm speaking purely from theory, but just that it must be so hard to find footing. Yeah. At a time of like such huge transition that we're in, where nothing really feels real or authentic, sustainable, like it's going to be here in another couple of years. Yeah. And so my solution, obviously, being who I am, is about getting in touch with land and plants and that kind of thing. But obviously, whatever, you know, choose your own adventure, but like whatever it is, I think it probably has to include that whole body connection.
I love that you brought that up because it like also brings up this whole notion of time, which I know we've also discussed, time in all of its confusion and mystery and beauty, and how like a coming of age, like marking a point in time, which is, you know, with Samhain, we're marking a time of year that we are going to reconnect with our ancestors if we haven't done already. Most of us, I think, are kind of, at least in this realm, aware of our ancestors, although I can't wait to unpack this with you because that is what this episode today is all about. We're going to dive fully into ancestors. But like that whole notion of feeling time within the body and understanding that we're stepping on a threshold or into a threshold of like a new time, a new chapter, a new era. And yeah, when you're like separated from how your own body is feeling through all of that, because frankly the data is just given to you and you're just consuming versus experiencing, how that would like render it meaningless until you look back on your life and go like, oh, what happened? Like, you know, who am I, where am I, and maybe I don't know. So
yeah. Oh, and one more thing for parents with kids who are maybe a bit older. One of the things I was thinking about recently was about how parenthood, you have the most responsibility and the least amount of influence. And I know. so just saying that we can be here with good ideas all day, but it's really up to, you know, implementation is, you know,
choose your own adventure and good luck.
I guess it's up to your kids to choose. I really don't have the answer to how you make anyone do anything. And actually, one of the things I was thinking about a lot recently is how ancestors and future generations and the idea of healing and how you really can only heal yourself. But healing yourself does heal your ancestors and your future generations.
So, since we're here to talk about ancestors today and ancestor work, ancestor magic, I'm so curious, what is your experience working with it?
The ancestor work has been an evolution, I'll say. I, for a long time, was really interested in just like what the family history was and feeling like quite a chip on my shoulder about the fact that my family didn't really know or care. I mean, especially on my mom's side, there was just a lot of unknowns. and findagrave.com. Hit or miss. I think it also works best for cemetery headstones in the United States or in England, maybe other parts of Europe. So just like a grain of salt. But it's this volunteer database of headstones, and it can be sometimes linked to census and other type of data. So you can kind of start to find histories, that way. So I've found quite a few that way. And yeah, just did my own research and was able to share that back with my family. I guess maybe a year ago, I started putting sort of an altar together. It's already a little table that I felt had some good energy, and like had some prayer cards from some funerals like on it. Oh, cool. And then as we got like another picture or another I have a little chalicey bowl thing there where we put offerings. And actually, Monica Bodersky, that's been interviewed a few times on the Witch Space podcast. I met with Monica and just had a conversation, needed some serious guidance at the time and got necessary grounding. And it was Monica who opened my eyes to bringing like physical offerings, which like in hindsight, I'm like, you dope. Like, of course, like, I don't know. Like I was thinking like, oh, I'm going, on these like Laura O'Brien guided meditations to meet ancestors and that I'm going to like mentally bring. And it was like, no, honey, like make the brownies, like buy the bottle of whiskey, like whatever it is. And I had like kind of like a stinginess about it at first. And now I'm over here like pouring it out, like, oh. And I have to say it's a freeing feeling. So it's been a gradual process and not formal at all. But when I was doing the Find a Grave research, I found out that some of my mom's side of the family, which again is like the side we didn't know as much about, were actually buried very nearby.
Oh, okay.
And so I started visiting when I would go back east to see family. I started visiting the plot that had a couple of relatives in it. So this is my mom's mom and dad.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that would be my maternal great grandparents, and then my great grandfather's mom and dad are also there, and all in the same plot. The first time I went, you have to go to the office. I mean, over 1 million people are buried in this cemetery. Right. Yeah, exactly. And so they tell me where it is. You drive up, and I just like, I got there and I fell upon the earth. I just had to be down there, and I just have a feeling it is my great-great-grandmother. So my great-grandfather's mother who's there, her specific burial plot is actually concave because at the time they used wooden caskets that, give it 100 years and that will rot and fall in. And so there's this depression in the ground. And so that's where I like to hang out. I've been there twice, and I think that was probably a necessary foundation for what happened this June. I see a somatic sort of therapist who was, do you want to learn about some ancestor practices? Of course, yes. And they suggested automatic writing, which is like as simple as it sounds. You sit down, you maybe kind of center yourself, and then you just start writing to, or maybe it's an invitation. I was looking back at what I even wrote. I got as far as saying like, beneficial or whatever the wording was, like-minded, that kind of thing, like trying to call in beneficent energy. Yes. We have many, many ancestors, trying to get certain ones maybe. Anyway, as soon as I sort of formalized that thought in my brain, I was getting like a hello, dear. Whoa. And then I was, again, like just trying to formalize the thought and obviously write it down, which is slower. What is your name? And then I was hit with Mary. Okay. The most common name.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Like a grain of salt. And then the baby started to wake up and it was like coughing. But what was so crazy was that I think my overthinking mind was preoccupied with the baby. And so this kind of conversation and sense of a presence continued.
Oh, cool.
And it just kind of kept going. And so I had done enough of this ancestry on findagrave.com to know that actually my mom's parents, both of those individuals had mothers named Mary.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, is it great-great-grandma Mary or is it great-great-grandma Mary? And I really felt like it was my great-grandfather's mother. And that was just because I had such a sense of Ireland, and she was born in Ireland. And, as this is going on, I'm like, was she born in Ireland? Like, I'm going to have to check my facts on that. So I go back to my findagrave.com to try to learn more about who this may be. And yes, great-great-grandmother Mary was born in Ireland. And I just had the sense that she was behind my eyes the whole weekend. So I'm working, feeding and changing my, at the time, like 6-7 month old baby. And it was like I was seeing my child with grandmother eyes.
Whoa.
Grandmother love. And not to just twist the knife, but a grandmother who died just before her grandchildren were born.
Oh my God.
and miss that opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lay it on me.
So my grandmother was born after her father died. Her father died at 28 of like a freak aneurysm type thing, while his wife, my great-grandmother, was pregnant with her second daughter, my grandmother, and his name is Lawrence, and my mom didn't even know that. So this grave I've been going to has Mary and my great-grandmother Virginia, who was widowed very young with 1.5 kids, and then Lawrence never even met my grandmother. So I'm picturing Lawrence's mom like seeing my children and having missed out on her grandchildren, having not known how closely beyond the veil she was followed by her own son. You know, like just a weightiness there of like,
totally.
And my grandmother grew up obviously without her dad, and then her mother died at 35 of cancer after being bedridden with illness for years, and this was like going on during the Depression. My grandmother and her sister were raised by their aunt, and it was tough times, like to say the least, right? So Grandma Mary, oh my gosh, this pure love, and like thoughts came to me of like being proud of me, which, as we already addressed earlier today, like would not be me thinking that, you know what I mean? This must be somebody else. Exactly. And so just having this profound sense of like intergenerational healing happening and being able to be a channel for that love and attention to my extremely happy and amazing child, who I think is like my grandmother, who's just basking in the glow and the love that's all around her this time around. You know what I mean? And so then I see my husband hold my daughter, and it just feels like a bone being set or something. And can I just add one more crazy fact? Okay. So when I went back to see like which Mary, you know, Ireland, I'm looking at all the dates of birth and death again. And it turns out Lawrence was born on the exact same day as me.
Whoa.
We were born on the same day of the year. He was born 92 years exactly before me. Wow. Or I was born 92 years exactly after. Yeah.
Crazy.
That's my ancestor story.
Holy wow. I just feel like that is so much all at once for you, but like so profound. Oh my gosh. I have like chills. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I've been witch adjacent for a long time, right? You know, I think many of us kind of like, oh, we like nature. We're kind of alternative. Or we're kind of this or that. And then, you know, one day we, for whatever reason, claim it. And I definitely think the last year and a half, there's been these moments where it's just like, I don't know, slapping me in the face. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, yes, there's something going on. This was definitely one of those moments where I was like, this is why I've been so interested in wanting to know this history. And oh my gosh. So this cemetery, right, in Philadelphia, but I can almost see, like it's probably less than a mile from where my grandparents' first house was. Okay, so I was talking about my grandmother who never met her father. Well, her father was interred like a stone's throw away from the first house. And my mom never knew any of this. My mom's one of 6 kids. Like, I've got cousins, you know, like nobody else has been there. Nobody else knows about this in my family. And it's been so close for so long. I mean, they just have been waiting, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The weight of that, and not to be like burdensome, but like just the gravity of like that you've discovered this and you've like put all these pieces together and like drawn the lines together and realized the order of events and how close they are, and just being the beholder of that knowledge right now must feel so precious too.
Yeah. It's like weighty, and then it's like a weight lifted. Like all of this weight that we're all carrying around not knowing, like by knowing it, you know?
It's almost
and
like the void
it
was filled, right? Now you're holding that and holding it in such sacred space where you're like experiencing the awareness of that magic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I'm just feeling like maybe this Samhain, I want to like baby my grandmother a little bit. I mean, such a robbed childhood in so many ways, you know? She was a beloved person. I know she gave a lot to a lot of people. I would just so love to be able to like baby her a little bit, you know?
That makes my heart just like,
right.
And I think that's what's hard, I think, too, about being in this space where we're really open to connecting like on that level in that way. Because honestly, anybody on the outside, like hearing this in the modern age might just be like, that's crazy. Like you're not mothering your grandmother. But it's like, no, you're feeling this and experiencing this, and like your body's interacting with this different timeline that happened, but is currently happening. You're able to step into that and integrate that energy into right now.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just further proof that like all time is happening at once. That doesn't feel crazy. That feels beautiful.
Well, and if you want to be like scientific about it, right? This is a story that I know, right? And so it's a sadness and a grief that I imagine. I could just be like, you know, soothing that little part of myself that holds that grief, you know? So is it some sort of very literal, spiritual, her spirit, or is it something in me, or is that the same thing even? You know, I don't know, whatever works for you. But yeah, I think Tyson Yunkaporta in the book Sand Talk talks about the Aboriginal Australian group that he hails from. They have like a cyclical idea of generations. And is it your great grandchildren or great grandparents are also your children? I'm not sure how many steps removed in which it repeats. There's definitely cultures that talk about it. And John Moriarty, because I can't get an episode out without mentioning him.
We love.
Yes, we do. We do love.
He's welcome to the space.
Please invoke. He has a story called The Story of Big Mike, which is on YouTube, of him telling the story, if you have a half hour to listen to it. But he talks about the midwife of the town passing away. And so one of the people that was delivered by this midwife, you know, the way he puts it was, as he was babied into the world, he babied her out of the world. Yeah. I think that there's something about parenthood and also maybe sort of stepping into an adult role where you can baby people.
Yeah.
No matter who they are, even if they're your grandparents or your unmet relatives or your, whoever they may be.
Yeah. And like ultimately, you know, whether it's really happening on a spiritual level or if it's like a soothing part of ourselves, does it really matter?
And I think if you think, okay, what's a spell, right? Like it's putting a certain energy out there. It's the same energy either way.
Right. The intention's all there.
Exactly.
Wow. That's so beautiful. That feels very like healing. Just to be witness to that story feels very healing.
I think it's going to be a long unfolding. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like, oh, we're going to do one dumb supper for my grandmother.
Check. Yeah. So have you done a dumb supper with your children?
I think so. Okay. So last year we had the intentions of doing that, but I was quite pregnant. Yes. And then there was a stomach bug.
Oh no.
And I threw up 7 times. Anyway, it was horrible.
God.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
So I have no recollection of what we did or didn't do last year. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And actually a couple of days after that, more in the sort of All Saints Day timeframe, we hosted a Halloween party where I had built a sort of terraced shelving thing for tea lights, and Gone But Not Forgotten was like the sign, and I encouraged people to light candles for those who had passed. That was sort of my way of having an intentional moment, and I really enjoyed doing it at a party.
Yeah, peer pressure helps. Yeah.
I like to make it more appropriate to talk about death.
Yeah.
And I think grief is something that if you're not very familiar with it, is treated like, oh, that person's very fragile. They're in grief. And I don't think that that's usually true or helpful. Yeah. So being much more like, oh, we're just going to make this okay to talk about. And at least one person there solemnly lit a candle. And I was like, well, that made my day. You know?
It served a purpose.
What about you? Are you a dumb supper?
Yeah. Samhain and Ancestor work around Samhain, I think, is the biggest reason why I resonated with a different system of observing holidays and special occasions. This deeper meaning to this holiday that I've always loved. I mean, the Halloween season, I have been into that since I came out. And so there was always like a depth that was missing in the shallow celebration of it growing up. And when I heard about the dumb supper, I remember being one of the very first things I was like, yes, I can get behind this. I observe these traditions, and what do I believe? In my case, I was looking at the history of Irish paganism and their culture and traditions. So that was one of the earliest things I think I adopted for my practice. And with the kids, I have done it, but we don't make as big of a deal of it as like my intention would be. Like I would really love to do it where it is totally candlelit and silent during that dinner, and like is a very solemn, not like sad, but just leaving the space for it to be a liminal space, right? Leaving the space for whatever to come through. But my kids aren't at an age where they can sit quietly for more than like a few seconds. So we're not there, but we always do set a plate out and we talk about it in a very just general sense. But death in our family is always something that I've been as honest and straightforward about as I can be without overemphasizing it with my kids, because my kids have some great imagination and I love it.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Like, and they, I mean, even we actually just had an instance yesterday where my son was saying things. I I was like, what are you saying? So he was telling my mom, who my mom is not this way. Okay. Like, this is part of the reason I think I've made this generational shift. I wanted to talk about deeper topics about psychological trauma. And when I was growing up, my mom is somebody who is just like, nope, put it away. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. Nope, that's too sad. So it was always suppressed. And with my son, he and I talk about it when he has a question, I just try to answer. We address death really openly in our home, but not a long time talking about it. Usually their attention span just dips off anyway and they want to talk about something else. So we've let them kind of just guide the questions and then we just move on. And we're kind of clinical about it for that reason. But I want to tell them the truth. So anyway, so the Dumb Supper, I really have loved that tradition because it just puts us into that beautiful contact with that remembrance and that attention toward those who've passed. And it's funny because that's so much what brought me to my witchcraft, my spirituality, because I felt like I was connecting with people in my family. And what's weird is, like, having this reflection recently, I've really gotten away from that. Like, I've almost divorced myself from like connecting with my guides and my ancestors because that was so core to why I got into it in the first place. And I've been really feeling the call this year, especially as I've been doing a lot of intentional work with the Morrigan this year for our big ritual we're doing and the music I'm writing, to get back in touch with that side and really make more of a daily intentional connection with those who've passed on. I'm lucky enough on my mom's side, I have a lot of the history, the genealogy laid out. Like, we have genealogists in our family that have done that work. And we have the cemetery that we've gone to with our families, like all their gravestones in it. My mom and dad want to be buried there. Like, it's a long legacy. Where my dad's family, he's had to do a lot of that research because his parents died when he was very young. I never met them. I'm apparently a lot like them. And I know that a number of people on his side have sort of been with me. In fact, one of the stories I love is that one of my psychic teachers that I worked with, she's Rochelle Barron Knight, and she's wonderful. And she was giving me a reading very early on in our friendship. And she's like, your grandmother likes to stand with you and watch you do your makeup. And like, she's with you whenever you're doing your makeup. And I just remember being like, what? She's the grandmother that I never met, but she sings, she plays piano, she plays violin, right?
Wow.
You know, it's a lot of similarities. We look very similar. We have a lot of similar tendencies. She's got a lot of Gemini. So it just feels very resonant, and I've always connected with her in some way or another. And so to know that, like, when I'm doing that very intimate self-love care ritual, she's been with me the whole time. So now I'll say hi to her, right? Like, and I still remember to do that, but I've lost touch with it. And so I love that we're doing this today because I feel my heart craving that connection again. It's exciting to work with deity. Like, I find it really inspiring. There's sort of a greater power that I'm tapping into and maybe channeling through my artwork, depending on, you know, whatever your feelings are on that. Totally understand, respect. I love the stories of myth and these great epics that we hear and how they make us think about our place in culture and the universe and history. But I lost touch with my own history and healing I'm doing within those generations. I think it would honestly really help with child rearing. I had a friend, I'd love to have her on here at some point. Her name's Emily. Emily, if you're listening out there, hi. Thank you for sharing this. She mentioned she started talking to her daughter's guides and like using that as a way of like helping both of them through these tougher transitions. Her daughter's really young and is going through toddler phases. That's so smart.
Yeah, that is so smart.
You know, and I'm like, this is just more reason to tap into that. So I have so many stories I could share of connections with my ancestry, but I'm really at this place where I'm like, I'm ready for like a new chapter with that, a fresh start, I guess, because it's been a while and I really feel the knocks at the door, you know.
Do you think this Samhain you'll do something a little more solo then? Like,
yeah, I'm lucky that we're in a place with my family where I can take that step away if necessary. And one of the things I did a lot of, like right before my sort of transition into my spiritual awakening in 2019 happened, was I was visiting graveyards a lot. Like, I was doing a lot of ghost hunting, and it was kind of out of jest. In fact, I had like a whole history with that. Not that I didn't believe in it, but it was just meant to be like a parody of like the typical ghost hunters you see on TV. Like, I just think it's hilarious comedy and entertainment. And I was doing some of that kind of stuff for fun, but then also like really genuinely interested in it. So I don't know. I really am feeling called this year to like visit a cemetery. None of my family's buried here. There's a few in the area that I've gone to just to like pay my respects and like be with an energy that has passed on. There's a cemetery up the road from my house, 2 blocks away. And just spending time in those sacred spaces, I think, is so meaningful.
Yeah. You know what that's reminding me of? Where I'm living right now in Washington State is historically Nisqually and Sequalichu land. And I do think about that where, you know, especially as my spirituality blossoms and I learn more about layering the science and the magic together, I think it's easy to look at our modern world and think that humans are like a parasite on the earth, but actually like we have the ability to increase biodiversity. And, you know, many cultures think that we're actually here to like look after the earth, both physically and spiritually. And then when you get into that quantum physics aspect of it, you're really co-creating one another, right? Like consciousness and spiritual practice and just existing, just being produces the environment physically, and the environment then produces you also spiritually, metaphorically, and physically.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So just recognizing that like people who lived here in that way,
right,
for thousands of years, you know, not just where people are interred, but just that of which, you know, there's people interred everywhere.
Yeah, they don't.
I mean, maybe not everywhere, but you know. But there's that sort of like aspect of it. But then there's also just like all of this land is a reflection of those people who were here and are here, who are very much still here. And so just I think there's something about, you know, maybe I'm moving in about a year and I'm thinking a lot about the indigenous people of that area, and it's helping me be more alert of those people who have stewarded and created this land that I'm on right now. And I think I want to make the most of that this year in Samhain and really honoring that in where I live, right by the Sequalichu Creek and the Nisqually River, just to acknowledge and to emphasize the weight of that legacy. And we might be able to pick up on messages from land and people prior.
When I think about like how meaningful as mothers we can introduce that to our kids too, like it's kind of what we talked about with like the coming of age thing, but it's putting them within the greater scope of being a caretaker of the earth versus just existing and just like consuming, right? And that they don't have to look at themselves with that spite or that anger of like, I'm just a parasite, because if we connect to the actual energy that the earth holds of all that have gone before us, all that have cared for the earth, and like bring them that greater awareness of history and of time, you know, what a beautiful way to be integrated with the wider world, which is in and of itself scary and dangerous. But like to have that knowledge at such a young age and be grappling with your place in it and seeing by example, not to like toot our own horns, but like, you know, just seeing by example somebody living in more of an intentional way with that, I think could only benefit, especially with the disconnection that our kids might be surrounded by. While it's amazing to like be interacting with that on our own and it's integral to our own spiritual journey, like I had this realization recently and I was like, I have got to involve my kids in this process more. It doesn't have to be showering them with crystals and making them do rituals with me and making them light candles and incense, but just inviting them into the space in a way that they can feel included. And it's not, oh, mom's doing her thing, because it's so easy to just want to carve out the time and space for ourselves, but then it ends up isolating them. And I don't know, I've been trying to like challenge myself with like, could I include them? Like, what could we do together? And like, I think about the land acknowledgement and the learning of the people that came here before, or even just like tidying up a cemetery. Like my kids notice litter all the time, and like, do we do our part to pick it up every time? Well, no, because I don't want them touching a bunch of garbage. Like even that connection is inviting them on that process.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there are like local tribal events happening. I mean, like there's not always powwows, but powwow season is a thing that I think we're probably past it right now, but just what other events there might be and that cultural exposure, and sort of like, it doesn't have to be some sort of like mysterious relic, you know what I mean? Like, oh, it's still happening, you know, in that aspect too, is I think what I'm trying to say.
Yes. It's a living tradition.
And
absolutely.
And then I want to also, I don't know exactly what you said that made me think of this, but when I'm shopping, like it's such a commercialized holiday now.
Yes, right.
So trying to be really intentional when I'm buying things. And if my kids are here with me doing any sort of even just grocery shopping, like where does this come from? Because sometimes things are very aesthetically beautiful, but I can see how it's made
right
when I am looking at that aspect of it, I just can't do it. And I've been thrifting a lot more, and especially for clothes for that reason.
Yeah.
Because buying the mass produced, you know, sort of fast fashion thing, when it's secondhand, feels like I'm taking something out of the trash. Whereas when I'm buying it new, it feels like I'm putting something into the trash.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So then like thinking about that with the decor too, of like, okay, is this something that is going to create a nice effect for like one night of a party and then I'm going to throw it away? And I'm just picturing it like floating in the ocean. Like,
oh my God, right. I want to like table that whole awareness of like, especially consumption, because I know you and I have to have a conversation about this, because this is something that's been like prevalent in my mind so heavily lately. And how can I be the example? How can I invite my children in on that journey? And how can I promote the values and the things that I see in a very real, direct way? Where can I make impact? I think that's really the word I want to use, is like, where could the biggest impact really be? And realizing so much of that is really within my own immediate environment, like especially with how we raise our kids. I think for myself, at least, I've viewed my spirituality and my motherhood experience not as separate things, but as kind of happening congruently, like in different lanes together. And I'm really trying to figure out how to blend the two where it's appropriate, but also it's taking them with that journey of self-discovery and spirituality, and then also bringing in that awareness of impact of, you know, when we're purchasing this fast fashion or this like prop thing made of whatever from China, like, what are we really contributing to? And if we can build that awareness at such a young age, like how could that serve them later to make better conscious decisions, not only just for themselves, but like for their finances, for their own families someday, like for supporting businesses that they care about. And it's become very like important to me, and it kind of all feeds into this greater awareness of where we are within time, within the universe. And when I think about how easily accessible every little thing that we could possibly want is, and how our ancestors literally survived winters, like this was a wonderful celebratory time. In fact, Gemini and Scorpio I feel like they're like our sister podcast, but not really, but kind of like, hey sisters. But you know, they were talking about how like they were conserving all of their resources to survive the winter, and we have no concept. And to think that like our ancestors survived and we're here now, are we making the impact we could? Are we being as aware as we could? And could we connect to that energy a bit more and just have a little bit more reverence for what it took, and then also using those same lessons in our own lives? And
you know, that actually sparks a seasonal plant thing for me.
Perfect. Let's go into this. Plants.
Is squash. Squash.
Beautiful.
Pumpkins, which pumpkins are native to what we, you know, with all this indigenous talk about Turtle Island, you know, like the Americas as we call them now. And that is such a dose of sweetness. Like we kind of just came off of berry season. Well, and I guess if you count strawberries, like maybe berry season starts kind of early, but like we just had like all of the blackberries and the blueberries and everything. The squash is definitely where you might get some of your sweeter food. I think maybe there's something coming up for me about like buying seasonal food and also cherishing the squash that is going to be like as the dessert. You know what I mean? Like I wonder if I can make something tasty. This is what we're going to savor as our treat, you know? So we'll see if I actually do that, but that's what's coming up for me right now.
I love that. Yeah. Squashes. I mean, this is like what we think of course. And whenever the holiday like season comes, I always get excited to see it. And I don't really have anything profound to say other than just like, yum.
Yum. Check.
Yeah.
Well, so if that's like our sort of, you know, sprout flavor for Samhain, I'm wondering what your star flavor is. So,
well, and actually to sort of underscore the, you know, the cyclical thing, because like genealogy and astrology is a whole separate study too. When you're looking at your own chart, you can see your mother's genealogy, like your mother's line, your father's line, you can see your siblings, and then you can see your children, like all within your chart. And even if you don't have children, that can be something that you create or care for, right? That you're nurturing. And so those are all aspects that are shown within your planetary placements in the chart. And you can completely interpret your chart with that filter and see the whole picture. It's a really fascinating study. And yeah, I can do it in readings. I'm not like super proficient in like going way, way back, but you can definitely see things. And then of course the nodal axis is a really interesting one too, that can bring in, like when you look at the South Node, your sort of handed down generational trauma or generational storyline, expectations, things that have been passed down to you. You can also look to that in the 4th house. But then also you looking at your past lives too will come through the South Node. I would say in the 12th house you can see it, but that nodal axis line, you can basically use the planets in your chart to determine how you died in a past life and what was your undoing, and like how that filters into what your lesson is now. So there's lots of ways you can take the chart. It's not just sun signs. We're very much standing in a place that looks similar to where we started this year in early January 2025 and December 2024, because all of our outer planets have now reversed back into the previous sign. So it's kind of that last look back, or like grounding back as we finish out 2025 into what was, and closing up chapters, ending stories, you know, looking back through your items. I mean, that's something that I actually have planned. Planets are going through my 8th house, and that is the house of endings. And so I usually have the feeling in November, I need to discard, I need to shed and let go and like dispose of items. And that usually always comes with this looking at keepsakes, which for me is the hardest thing to let go of. And so I have so many still that I've not been able to. Scorpio season as a whole is a magnificent time to do that. And this year, especially looking back to what was the last 5 years, you could even look back as far as 2012, like what has changed, what has happened, what are you still holding on to that you need to let go of, what are you going to preserve in the future and that you might have to work a little harder for. So thinking, you know, nostalgically, I guess, and reverently about the past.
That's actually something that has been a little bit of a theme for like, oh, we're going to be looking back and we're going to be working on this thing. And I'm like, yes, that sounds right. I can feel that coming. Yeah.
Well, I guess the last thing I want to ask is like, what gift does it hold for parents?
I guess I'm thinking about revealing to oneself, you know, and not just like looking for outside things, but to reveal ourselves to ourselves, and like this sort of as above, so below, that you have everything within you that you need or that there is to discover.
So good. Love that. Like the gift is like revelation. I think what the image I got was like, what does opening your eyes in the dark feel like? And to me, it is like you're awakened to other, but not other as in like noise outside of you, but that there is something beyond. And so that like awakening and awareness just comes back into focus a little bit. And we're able to like go into those darker places and bravely open our eyes and see it for what it is. And as a parent, I think we're met with that uncertainty and that fear all the time, raising young children, and to come into proximity with it in a season and to be able to talk about it and cultivate that awareness within the family unit. I only feel like that's going to serve our family, let alone our children's lives, like as they are met with crisis and uncertainty and death and grief and darkness, that like they have a close-knit family unit that talked about those things, were aware of those things, came into contact.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely love opening our eyes in the dark. And I think that what you're talking about is something I've been thinking about a lot, just like in the last day, about spiritual food. And like in this time of candy and sugar and all of that, it's like
I'm snapping.
Like what we really want and what we're craving, what we're so hungry for is spiritual food. And I think that this is one of those times where we can really, like you said, cultivate accessing that. Yeah,
it's good stuff.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Stars and Sprouts.
New episodes bloom with the wheel on the Sabbats and in between. And until next time, keep growing wild, rooted, and radiant.